Wait, but don't call the meeting to order yet until we know that, Bill, are you okay?
Yeah, you're live now.
Okay, great.
Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States
of
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Conover,
Here.
Mrs. DeChico,
Here.
Dr. Dalton,
Here.
Dr. Myers,
Here.
Mrs. Platt,
Here.
Mrs. Samuelson,
Here.
Mr. Sweeter,
Here.
Mrs. Lout,
Here.
and Mrs. Endicott.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we will open for public forum. For all of you watching from home, this is a virtual meeting, so the number will show on the screen. What's the number, Dr. Carnevator? 927?
609-927-1032. We will be putting a slide up in just a few minutes or a few seconds in order for the public to have reference.
Okay, please be advised that when you call in, please state your name and your address for the record, and also any affiliation that you're part of. You have up to 3 minutes to speak, and the entire portion of public comments will last up to 30 minutes. And we'll give the public a few minutes on the live stream to call in.
I have not received any phone calls as of yet. We'll give it a couple more seconds or minutes.
Okay, hearing nothing from the public, then we will move to close our public session at this time. Moving on to our agenda items. This is a special meeting resulting from our regular meeting from Thursday night. We're moving on to, we're holding this meeting for this particular purpose, which is item 3A under curriculum. Can I have a motion to approve the following resolution?
Motion, Dalton.
Thank
Second, Samuelson.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, I actually have a couple questions. My first question is regarding our remote students. Our family, we have about 47% of our families who elected previously to have their children participate in school remotely. And they had to complete that survey around the second week of August. So my question is that I want to make sure for those families that their students are going to receive equitable instruction in terms of whether they're remote versus the students who would be attending in person?
Right now, we are still working on the schedules for the middle school, but the intent is to give well more than an hour. They all have the expectation that they are to give face-to-face time to instruct the children. And we are trying to right now figure out the balance between the students that are in person in the seat and the students that are at home. But right now, it looks like we're at about an hour and 35 minutes of FaceTime with our virtual students every day. And includes a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning, but the asynchronous component will be at least an hour and a half, if not more. We're trying to work more time into the schedule. The middle school is still working on the details of their virtual students, but the intent is, and the expectation of our teaching staff is to ensure that students are receiving face-to-face instruction, have questions answered, and make sure that that they are getting what they need. And it will be content specific, so it will change a tiny bit, but I know that Mrs. Supp and Mr. Thomas are working on those details right now with that expectation.
Okay, when you say, so you're saying that currently our virtual students are getting about an hour and 35 minutes total of face-to-face throughout their time?
Well,
I'm
per
sorry?
day, per day, yes, because it's
Yeah.
a combination.
I thought it would have been more. I'm sorry. I'm surprised to hear that.
But there are some classes that are getting more. It's really a balance right now, and we're trying to find more time to make it equal between the groups.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that in a good way. And from my experience for my own children, it seems like they're getting more than an hour and 35 minutes a day. So that surprised me when you said that, but I'm understanding that that is the average of time.
Well,
that-
also too, right now, it is a little different because Jordan Road specifically is all remote. So once we go back to a hybrid situation with our scheduled day, we're going to make sure that, we have students in front of the teachers and then students that will be remote. And we're just trying to make sure it's as equitable as possible within the time that we have.
Okay, so once it goes back, what's currently happening with all of the students remotely is going to change, obviously, because you're going to have some kids in person in the seat and then some kids still at home. So it's almost like that time that's kind of going to everybody now fully remote is kind of might get chunked up because you've got some people there and some people at home. Got it.
Correct. And Wednesday will look like a lot like it does now for Jordan Road because Wednesday is remote for everyone. So Wednesday will still remain our remote day. So it's more so there'll be a change on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay, so there will be changes that happen as a result, but what you're saying is regardless of the changes that have to make, because now you're going to have some kids in and some kids at home, it's going to be equitable in terms of what they're getting instruction wise between who's at school and who's at home is what you're saying.
As equitable as we can make it. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So then thank you. My other question is in this resolution, it says students whose parents who choose to have their children to return, you have to wait until the end of the marking period, the trimester, and then students who wish to have their parents who wish to have their students return have to notify the building principal at least 2 weeks prior so that they can be aware and make arrangements, right? But it says here pending open space. So what does that mean?
What that means is currently it's different depending on what school the students are in. So while we have 47.5% of the students district-wide that have chosen to be fully virtual, or remote, the problem is that that's not set necessarily each of the buildings. So for instance, right now, as Mrs. Supp and Mr. Thomas are scheduling the middle school actually has more students that have requested to be in person than the elementary school. So with that being said, we are only allowed to have in our classrooms right now, according to executive orders, anywhere between 7 and 9 students in most of our classrooms. So and that's including the adults. So if it's a classroom of 7 and there's a teacher and let's just say a paraprofessional in the classroom, that only leaves 5 spots for that particular child, for the children in that classroom. So we
Mhm.
have to make sure that we are abiding by executive orders. And if parents do request it, it is not a guarantee, because if we hit our numbers to where we can't, in that particular grade, can't fit that child in, they will have to stay virtual, because we won't be able to fit enough students in the building according to the executive orders.
Okay, so you're saying if the executive orders remain at 25% by the trimester? that it would-
Well, we actually, when we did our planning according to the road back plan from the state. And we abided by the 113 square footage per person in the classroom. We went through every single classroom, the square footage of the classroom, and basically came up with a grid of every single classroom and the amount of students that maximum that could be in that classroom according to the 113. We would have to go back and revisit it, because there is a really good possibility that unless we get past 50% occupancy, we may not be able to do more than that in the classroom. So that's part of the problem, is we have to, if the state was open wider than 25 to 50%, we'd be in a lot better shape, but right now we're not. So we
Right.
have to wait and see what happens.
Okay, well, I guess my concern with that is that what was conveyed to the parents when they filled out the survey. Number one, the survey was asked of them in the second week of September and a lot of August, and a lot has changed since then. But it was said you'll be able to make your decision marking period to marking period. It wasn't said if you pick virtual now, there's a chance you might not be able to return. So I guess that's a concern for me, for parents who at that time elected the virtual with under the idea of, okay, well, if it doesn't work out, at least we can go back for the second marking period for whatever reason. But now they may be told, sorry, there's not enough room. So that's a concern, because if you would have had 80% of the families respond in the summer that they all wanted to return, you would have had to make arrangements for all of those children to be instructed in person.
We wouldn't have been able to do that. That's part of the reason that this resolution reads as it does, is because it's not based upon the percentage of people coming back. We cannot accommodate, according to executive orders, a certain number of students. So if we had 80% of our students returning, we would have automatically been remote.
You would have automatically been remote, or you have had to change the schedule instead of making it an AA day or a BB
Well,
day.
it would either automatically be remote, or it would have been 1 day a week. So that's kind of what we have to wait and see. I don't want to say that we're going to be able to do that, but if I can, I will. But we have to wait and see, depending on what the executive orders read. And if we get up to a certain number, then I don't know how many people are going to choose the option if they only have 1 day a week versus 2. Do you know what I'm saying? So those are the things that we have to play with as we go here to see how much we can accommodate.
I completely understand. I wouldn't want parents who elected this remote with the idea, because that's what they were told. Well, you can make your decision for the second trimester, to then be told, sorry, we're full, you can't come back. Because, do you know what I mean? Because that's not what they were told in the summertime. So
I totally understand. So if our numbers get to that point, it's important for the public to understand that we could go down to 1 day a week if the numbers increase.
right. So that's why I wanted to ask and question that. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for answering my questions. Those were just my two.
I
Does anyone
have a question, and this is for Dr. Cry. Dr. Cry, in looking at the number of students who will be coming back hybrid and the number of students who will most likely stay remote, either because they chose to be remote or something else is going on in their family where they need to stay remote, I'm looking at the burden on the individual teacher. Is the same teacher assigned to both the full-time remote student and the hybrid student? Or are we going to, I know there was some discussion somewhere about having some teachers that were assigned to remote if they could not come back in the building for medical reasons.
Well, we've also discussed, and this was part of our discussion last week, we've also discussed having teachers teach a full remote cohort.
That's what
Yeah, but because of the number of teachers that we have currently right now at the middle school specifically, that is almost an impossible task. I know Mrs. Supp has been looking at it, but with content specific teachers, it's difficult because we only have so many per subject. But we are looking at our options, and that's the reason that all of this may adjust as far as a number of hours face-to-face with a student once we go fully hybrid, the number of students that have face-to-face time virtually versus the hybrid students, because it's that fine line of, how do we make it all happen? But we are talking about that. I do know Mrs. Lee worked with her staff. Mrs. Lee worked with her staff to accommodate that. So, and we're trying to do the best we can to make it the best situation for our students, and make it equitable for our staff as well.
Yeah, I'm just worried about their workload. I want to make sure that it's scalable and manageable to do both.
That's the reason that some of our remote students may not have 4 hours like they do now with a teacher. We have to play with all of that and make sure that we're doing the best we can with the hours that we're allotted.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi, Dr.
Okay,
Cry. This is Sarah. I just have a question. Going back into the hybrid model, obviously there's going to be like some more interaction, and have we given any thought to what we're going to do when we need substitutes? I know a lot of districts are making some changes for just during the pandemic of how they're going to ensure that they have enough substitutes on hand and able to work. Have we visited that yet?
Well, we had. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback. We have. Can I ask a favor? Can everybody mute your mics just so I can not get the feedback? Oh, that's a little bit better. Okay. So I apologize. So I wanted to, we are looking at that. We are working with Kelly Services, who is providing our sub-service for us. We are also looking at some permanent subs and possibly bringing them in. Some of the ways that districts have accommodated the sub shortage, even though it's not working out great because there is really truly a statewide issue, is that they've raised their sub rates to a level, and I don't want Dr. Romer to shudder, but to a level that is unattainable for our district. And so I am trying to get creative, and we have some people that were approved on our sub list that we are trying to look at bringing on for either long-term leaves or for permanent sub situations. But we're also working with the teachers as far as creating asynchronous plans that, should we not have subs, that can be applied for their work for the day, and they would just notify the families. That's what's also being done in a lot of districts as well, is that the teachers have backup plans of work that the students can do. Or if they are homesick but feeling well enough. I mean, it's a hard situation. It's a fine line, but we're trying to get as creative as possible, and also preparing for difficult situations. But I don't have an answer yet because we're still working with Kelly on that. But I will try to get an answer on a plan and share that out.
That hasn't been our strong suit pre-pandemic, correct?
Correct. That's the reason we were trying to go with a service that could do recruiting for us, and they are recruiting for other districts as well in the area.
Permanent subs that would be in the building would be able to jump in if we had a staff member that needed to quarantine for that 2 weeks for whatever reason, right?
That's what we're trying. That's what we're trying to do. Because, and that's what we're trying to give training where we can, because, and why we ask for emergency plans, because you never know. And with the emergency plans, if Google Classrooms are already set up, or OnCourse classrooms are set up, then that can just be, worked through with the substitute. But, with a remote or in-person situation in this world we're in, it is difficult, but we are working on some strategies for that.
And Dr. Cry, we do know that our substitutes, the way that you hired them, many of them were hired that had at least the substitute certificate and possibly a degree, so that if there was a need, and it is in the contract, that they can go into the classrooms if that's the last resort.
Stacy Courtney has her hand up.
Hey, Courtney.
Dr. Rick,
Hello.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Wait,
Go
the
ahead.
the substitutes have a sub certificate, or do you mean the paraprofessionals? Some of them have a sub certificate in case of emergency.
If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Rimerick, the paraprofessionals you're talking
Yeah.
about, correct?
It's paraprofessionals, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Law. You have the floor.
Okay, so in listening to Sarah's comments, it's more of a comment than a question at this point, but I know that we were faced with this situation. I myself was faced with a situation in the first few days of school where we had a teacher in the elementary level who fell ill and couldn't be on screen and was hospitalized. One of the solutions that we came up rather quickly with in Egg Harbor Township in my building was and I offered to do it kind of like as an experiment, is to double up the classes. So another kindergarten class joined our class for the first few days of school. So I found that could possibly work at the elementary level because they're still going to get that instruction because we're all, pacing together. I don't know if that would be a possibility for Summers Point, but I know the parents at the end of that week were pleased that there was continuity of instruction, within our team. So that's something that we have talked about, if there's a situation that comes up, and of course that was an emergency situation, but it really did work out within our team, and the kids did get their instruction for those few days. I don't think that would work in the older grades with, because the content areas, but I think maybe in the lower grades that could be on top of doing, emergency lesson plans. In the younger grades, I think that that's something maybe we could look at, and maybe the teachers can talk about that in a PLC. Just an idea.
That's a great idea. And I know we had already talked about that definitely at the elementary school level because of our numbers. Like I said, our numbers are different depending on the building. And it's more feasible at the elementary school level, but I have asked, and I'm leaving it to the building leaders to come up with an emergency plan in order to ensure that we have coverage if we get stuck in a difficult situation. But we're just trying to, we have another admin meeting coming up and we'll be discussing this in further detail.
Yeah, I think it's important just to kind of piggyback on what Mrs. Law and Dr. Meyer was saying. One was just Mrs. Law was more of in an emergency situation. So I think that's a great strategy. But then also what Dr. Meyer was saying just about generally in terms of sharing classes, or she had mentioned in terms, I guess in the conversation, it had come up about having a virtual teacher versus a non-virtual teacher, or as you said that really couldn't happen for Jordan, but maybe for Dawes and New York Avenue. So
that has been discussed, and it's still in the discussion phases. I know the principals met with their staff all day, like a lot on Monday and all day yesterday. So we're still working on figuring out those details, but I will bring back the feedback from the board and any community members, and we'll work to see if we can come up with a solid plan. But I do know that is in the back of our mind for this situation, especially with the subs.
Right. Well, I guess for an emergency situation, I think is absolutely one thing. But I guess for the everyday situation, does that mean that students who currently have their teachers assigned from the beginning of the year that could change for them now, or
that I can't answer
again,
that right
I'm talking
now.
emergency. I'm not talking emergency because I know you guys have to come up with your plans
Right.
for
Well,
somebody-
that could, it could change. I mean, there's so many unknowns in this process, as we know, especially with us getting back to in-person instruction. So we're going to have to plan stuff as we go in order to, come up with a solid plan. But I do know that one of the plans that we had talked about is having 5 days of asynchronous lesson plans that could be implemented in an immediate need. But we still have to work out all the details that there could be changes because we don't know what this is going to look like week to week. So, the teachers could change.
Right, but for our New York Avenue, for our PK to 3 students, they're already in doing hybrid currently. So what would change for them, I guess, if it's going to continue as is? Right?
Correct.
Because they've been that all along.
Correct. It's just, we don't know what it looks like yet at Jordan because we haven't done it yet. So I have to, wait and see. But as far as the elementary school, it's going to look like it is. I just don't, we just don't know what's going to happen with our staffing. And I just want to make sure that we're, prepared either way.
Okay, but I guess my question I keep asking is for the PK to 3 kids, is it possible that their teacher could be changed or no? Because that was mentioned, but they're already in doing hybrid now. So they're right. It'll just continue as is.
It'll continue as is. However, we have discussed having a virtual teacher take over the virtual component. So if that's the case and there is that possibility, then the students could, if we have small classrooms, they could be both combined into one. And the teacher could change for some students in order for a virtual teacher to take over for our completely virtual group. But that is still being worked out with Mrs. Lee. I can't give an answer on that right now. Clear answer.
Okay. Okay, that's okay. I do want to have it said then that kind of is a situation where our remote students are not being given equity as the in-person kids, because this is the teacher that the children have met, the parents have met, and now because they've elected to stay remote, that teacher could be changed for them now. So whereas the kids who are in person would still get to continue with their teacher. So that's an example that kind of echoes what I was bringing up earlier in terms of ensuring that equity for our remote students, the 47% that have elected to be remote. So that's, I guess, is a concern.
And it's a legitimate concern. And I'm not saying that that's definitely going to happen, but there are a lot of what ifs and unknowns that we don't know. And I still haven't worked out everything with the administrative team. So I can't give a concrete answer that it is or isn't going to happen. I just still need some time because we are trying to work through some things because as for what Dr. Myers discussed, the workload has been, a discussion that we've been having, and we're just trying to do what's best for the students and making sure that their needs are addressed with the teachers. I don't know for sure that those changes are going to happen, but there's a lot of things that are always a possibility in a situation like this.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one. Do you this is for Dr. Cry, do you meet, I guess, how often do you hear any kind of feedback from the governor? Is it like maybe you have county superintendent meetings and you get a sit down with someone who's kind of involved with this, or nothing?
Actually, it's been too much. We've been meeting weekly. Actually, Dr. Rimmer's laughing. We've been meeting weekly as our leadership team, like our superintendents for the county, and our county superintendent has tried to make it in as much as possible. I'm on the legislative committee at the state level. We actually met with the commissioner on Monday and peppered him with quite a few questions about concerns that we have. In addition to the fact that we are, constantly reaching out to each other. As soon as we get executive orders, like we get emails almost hourly about changes that are being made in executive order changes. And we got something today from the Commissioner of Health I know one of the comments that was made from the commissioner on Monday in our legislative meeting was because there seems to be some confusion between whether or not it's going to be, we listen to the Department of Ed or the Department of Health in regards to COVID. And they made it very clear to us that the Department of Health is what guides us with medical concerns, and the Department of Ed is the educational concerns. So, but there seems to be a lot of gray areas still, and we're trying to work all those things out. So that is something that, you know, we have a lot of communication, and we talk, the superintendents talk weekly, if not every other day. But it's just constant communication. But there's also, like we've discussed plenty of times over since it started, there's also constant changes. So it's like we have to constantly be rolling with the changes.
I was wondering if you had a sense that maybe we will go to 50% more, or we would stay at the 25% marker.
I do know the governor was talking today, you know, warning people to please continue to be vigilant and taking care of yourself, because there are states that are starting to see spikes again. So, you know, he does not seem confident that we're going to be making any more moves to the next level. So I'm just waiting to hear. We get, like I said, we get notifications almost hourly from the county office. So as soon as I know more, I'll be happy to share.
Okay,
And
thanks.
And don't forget, we are going to be going into flu season. So COVID versus regular flu is going to get very messy to try to figure out symptomology. So that's something else we're going to have to, you know, contend with.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
I apologize. I'm trying to unmute. Dr. Myers,
Yes.
Mrs. Platt, hello, Mrs. Platt,
Can you hear me?
now I can, yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Dr. Dalton,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. DeChico,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeter,
Yes.
Mrs. Samuelson,
Yes.
Mrs. Laut,
Yes.
and Mrs. Endicott.
Yes, thank you. Motion approved. Moving on, we're back. This is the only item on the agenda. We're back to public comment. We will open for public comment, and the number should show on your screen. For those of you watching at home, members of the public would like to call in with questions or comments, please go ahead and do so. When you do call in, please state your name, your address, and any affiliation if applicable. And remember, you have up until 3 minutes. I'm going to give it another minute. Just okay, at this time, hearing nothing from a public comment is closed. And we'll move on to board forum. board members, anyone like to speak?
Mrs. Endicott, I know we just closed public comment, but I do have a call coming in. Is it okay to take this?
Yes, go ahead.
Hold on for 1 second. I will put you on speaker. Okay, state your name and your address, please.
This is Jen Pearson. I live at 113 Valley Drive in Summers Point.
Go ahead with your comment, Mrs. Person.
I just want to thank the board and the administration for all of their efforts. And I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
I can now. Yes, I'm sorry.
Hello?
I hear you.
Oh my goodness. Hi.
Technology.
Dr. Cry.
Hi, technology is a wonderful thing. Go ahead.
Oh, I love technology. Okay, I don't know. This is Jen Person. I live at 113 Bala Drive. I just want to thank the board, thank the administration for, rescinding the original plan and allowing us the option to go hybrid. We are overjoyed in our house. My girls cried Friday morning when I told them we can't wait. With that being said, we will be very patient here in our house. I know firsthand that these teachers are under a tremendous amount of stress, and this is only going to add to it. But please know that we are so thankful to be able to get our girls into the building, to be able to see their teachers and learn. Nothing can take the place of in-person education. As we're seeing with this meeting or listening, virtual learning is extremely difficult. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. And we will be very cooperative and understanding and patient. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Person. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, board forum. Any members of the board like to speak?
I do want to thank all the board members and Dr. Cry and her staff. This has been extremely difficult. The teachers have been, from the teachers that I know or know of, they have been very embracing of yet another change coming through, which is going hybrid. And I want to thank them all for their dedication to the children and doing everything that they can to provide the highest level of education for them.
Thank you, Mrs. Myers, Dr. Myers.
Anyone else? I agree that I know that our PK to 3 teachers have already gotten into kind of a rhythm with the hybrid instruction, but I also know that our Jordan Road teachers, our 4 through 8 teachers, have gotten into a rhythm with all day remote, and now moving to hybrid is going to be yet another switch and getting into a new rhythm. So again, to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Meyer said, as well as what Mrs. Person said when she called in, it is going to be kind of another shift that we're all going to have to go through and kind of embrace and give some patience to, because it's just going to be kind of a new adjustment for everyone. So if everyone in our community, if everyone can kind of keep that in mind when that happens, that it will be a little bit of an adjustment, that would be fantastic, because I also know firsthand how difficult it is trying to work with students virtually, and then throwing in an in-person thing to go with it. It is very difficult. It's lots of shifting, lots of moving parts. So I do agree with that it is going to be something that everybody has to have patience for, as was said. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Kathy Dalton. I would like to say I'm very impressed with everyone's flexibility and their very hard work from students, to teachers, to administration, to just the community. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion Lot?
Thank you.
Second Myers.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.